Hello and welcome. I am Arumba. Thank you for joining me. So, I am going to continue playing Dwarf Fortress. I've gotten some pretty good feedback. A lot of people seem pretty interested in it, so let's go ahead and get started. Before we dive into it, I do want to give you a little bit of an idea what to expect as far as the layout of the series. The first few episodes will be slower in pace and have a lot more detail, just in case you've never seen Dwarf Fortress before, or you're unfamiliar with some of the features of the game. Later on in the series, I plan on probably picking up the pace a bit, but I'm also going to slow down occasionally to go over some of the details that most people have probably never heard of before, or there's very little documentation on. So for example, some of the things I want to talk about is how to use the labor optimizer, how to use workflow, how to use auto butcher, seed watch, how to use quick fort. These are topics that I've covered previously in Masterwork Dwarf Fortress, but I think it's important that that I show you how to do it. So what we have so far is there's a zip file. This should be in the description of the video by the time you're seeing this. All you need to do is open this up. You're going to get a folder. It looks like this. Comes with Lazy Newb Pack right in it. You're going to fire up Lazy Newb Pack, and the settings should be still set to whatever I had them at. So you can just click Play Dwarf Fortress if you want, or you can tinker around with them a bit. That's really up to you. I am going to be playing with the Phoebus 3.4.11 version 00 graphics set. I've never played with the ASCII graphics. If you are an old hardcore Dwarf Fortress player, that might bother you, but I think in general most people just play with whatever they started with. And I started on Phoebus. I've tried a couple of the other ones. Iron Hand's pretty good too, but I simply cannot play with ASCII. I can't. Visually, it just breaks for me. I'm too used to the old, like the newer graphics and everything. I'm probably not going to use TrueType because there's still a TrueType font bug in this version of Dwarf Fortress, so I'm going to leave TrueType off. And other than that, I do want to fire up some things, and I'm going to actually show you how I like to have it set up when I'm playing Dwarf Fortress. I use Windows 7, so I've got all these items down here bound to the bottom of my taskbar. And so what I like to do is you take Soundsense, for example. I like to fire that up first. The very first time you run it, it's going to ask you to find your game log. So that's going to be in right in here, in the game log right there. And we've got all the music files, so we're good to go. Once that's up and running, it's not going to make any sound at first. I'm going to turn it down a bit just so that it's not too loud, maybe like right about there. And then what I like to do is you just actually right-click right on... Where is it? Oh, that's interesting. It won't let me do it from here. Okay, fine. In that case, we will go to Open Utilities folder. We'll find Soundsense, and we'll do this. We will pin to taskbar. That's what I want. And then I like to put it like right over there. That way I can just launch it right in order. Okay. Other than that, I also want to get quick fort going, even though I don't plan on using it right away. And might as well fire up Dwarf Therapist. It's going to be upset with me because Dwarf Fortress isn't running yet, and we're ready to play. So I am using DFHack. It's kind of built into this playthrough, so you're automatically going to see this. This will pop up in the background. You can't close it. It won't let you. It's kind of merged in with Dwarf Fortress, so just get used to it being in the background. It's not a big deal. We'll get to that later. Now, if you fired up Quick Fort just like I did, go ahead and press Alt-H to hide that tooltip for a second, because we're not going to use it for a little while. So let's first talk about what Dwarf Fortress is. It's like a picture The Sims plus SimCity, except with dwarves, kobolds, elves, and like all kinds of other really weird made-up creatures. It's like you control this medieval style. I always think actually like the Norse Vikings. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to play this. I've been playing a lot of Crusader Kings too, and I always think of Vikings as dwarves and dwarves as Vikings. So I'm gonna go ahead and create a new world first. And we're going to get that first pop-up. I'm not going to do the advanced worlds. I'm just going to do a regular one. So we'll go ahead and do a medium-sized world with short history. I don't care about the civilizations that much. We'll do medium, medium, medium. The only thing I'll probably bump up is the mineral occurrence. I don't want to put it to everywhere because that's kind of, it's not that challenging. Actually, we'll leave it on sparse. Sparse will be fine. So increasing mineral occurrence makes more embark sites have more minerals. I'll press Y to go. One thing you need to be prepared for is that the game in general is not the most user-friendly when it comes to the interface. Even with all the additions we've seen from the mouse query and all that in the first video, it's still not that intuitive. And so I'll do my best to try to make it simple for you, but Dwarf Fortress is by many regarded to be like the most complicated game out there, even more so than Crusader Kings 2. So if you like Crusader Kings 2, you'll probably like this game as well. I'm going to turn that down just a little bit more. It's pretty rocking, but don't want to overpower us. Now it does take a while because everything in this game is actually procedurally created every time you want to generate a new world. The game is actually it's simulating history right now. So we've just ran 125 years of history. We have 24,000 people. 8,300 of them are dead, so that's normal. Number of events have been cataloged. You can actually go through the history files. It's pretty interesting. Okay, that's all it takes really to generate a world. Okay, so now we can start playing. I'm going to go into Orid Raban, which is the region 2 I just generated. There's 3 game modes that you can play Dwarf Fortress in. Dwarf Fortress, which is the primary mode, which is where you control a fortress of dwarves. Adventurer mode, which is basically a roguelike. I've never really gotten that interested in adventurer mode. I've always played it for the fortress mode. And then Legends, you can go through the history and do all kinds of things with that. I pretty much exclusively play Dwarf Fortress fortress mode. Now this screen is the Embark Screen, so I'm going to turn that down even just a little bit more. I just want some music in the background, you know. Now this screen can be kind of confusing. The best way to explain this is that you've got 3 map modes. You've got the world, the region, and local. This is the most zoomed out mode, medium, and close view. So what we're going to do is down here is basically like Antarctica type land. It's very cold. And we can see over here there's some deserts, there's jungles, this is water, that's a volcano. These little statue-looking things represent a civilization, our civilization specifically. And yeah, now this is the furthest zoomed out. If we wanted to look around here, go ahead and use the arrow keys to zoom around. We can see that as we zoom in, there's much more land to look at. It's a very, very big world, and this is actually a small world by the game's standards. I would say that even if you have a powerful computer, I'd recommend that you run on a smaller map, because one of the things that's interesting about this game is that it was created so long ago that the map maker, or not map maker, but the game creators, I think it's Tarn Adams, if I'm not mistaken, and his brother, it's all generated and run by the processor. There's no graphics card interaction. So everything is done by the processor, and it's kind of run in cycles or ticks, meaning that the more stuff it has to calculate, the slower it will run. So even if you have a powerful computer, which my computer is quite powerful, I still prefer to play with smaller maps and smaller embark sites, because it's just, I like to be able to play at a reasonable pace. So what we're going to do is we're going to just press the F key to find a desired location. We're going to search for a 4x4 embark location. We want to have... there's a few options. You can put savagery to not applicable, low, medium, and high. And what we're going to do is basically filter the map to try to find destinations that have these criteria. Now, there's no guarantee that we'll find a site that fits all the criteria, so I like to leave as many of them as not applicable as possible. Just there's a lot of options. One of the things I definitely don't want is an aquifer. An aquifer is a endless supply of water out of a single tile They're usually under, a few Z layers of land. They're like down in the ground. And if you strike an aquifer, it just generates infinite water. It's supposed to represent like an underground river or an underground stream, that type of thing. But they're just annoying to deal with. It's hard to get around them. We'll probably have some fun with it later. I do like rivers because I like to fish. I'm not going to really worry too much about metal, but I do want fluxstone. Fluxstone is used to make pig iron, and it's also a little bit more valuable than regular stone, so it can be used for crafting if you're in a pinch. But generally it's used for your metalworks industry. And let's go ahead and say sure. Let's have yes to the metals. And don't really care too much about clay. And I'll just leave this not applicable. We'll find some soil. Now we're going to click enter, and it's going to search through, starting in the top left and working its way down, cycling through all of the world's locations. And when you see these reds, these mean that they don't match the criteria. The greens mean that it does. So we're kind of just waiting again, and once it actually gets to the end, we will be able to cycle through those locations. So we found quite a few that match the criteria. Plenty, in fact. Okay, so now it's finished, and now it's just going to flash the ones that actually match the criteria. So we're going to press escape to browse the results. And what happens is that each one of these tiles here is actually a 16 by 16 zone. So it really is, it's a very large region. Now I want to try to zoom up to, say, following this little yellow thing here, somewhere in the middle, a nice temperate zone. So I've located a flashing green location, like say, we'll go to this one here. See how it's flashing, I'm going to go there. And now I can see on this map mode, all these flashing green ones represent the same thing. So let's say we pick, for example, right here. Now we're over here. It automatically places this Embark location on the tile in this section that matches the criteria that I wanted. If I wanted to, I could actually shift this around over here by using the U, K, M, and H keys. But it might not have all of the items if I move it. On the other hand, if I select one of these other items over here, every time, see how it's moving around from one spot to another? Each time it's guaranteeing that I match the criteria. So if you're not really exactly sure what you're looking for, just use the search and then let it pick the zone for you. This one's actually along a road leading to a civilization. This is the borders of a big castle. Another one there. And that's a road going right through the local map there. It doesn't really matter to me that much where we embark, so a volcano would be nice, but let's not worry about it. Let's just go to... Now, actually, this would be ideal. See right there where it says BRK? This is what I mean by how the game is not that intuitive. The documentation's not that great. BRK stands for brook. A brook is different than a river. A river is different than a stream. What's nice about a brook is that your dwarves can walk over it and they won't fall in. You never have to worry about them drowning or having the water freeze in the winter, because a brook is essentially shallow enough that they can just traverse it at any point. Now what we're going to do next is we're going to take a look at the different biomes. F1, F2, and F3 are going to cycle through the various biomes. The fact that there are F1, 2, and 3 tells me that there are 3 separate biomes in this location. If I move this around, we might see this number of items go down. For instance, now it's just 2, telling you that there are 2 biomes. You can actually have, up to 6, 7, 8 different biomes depending on just how diverse the region you're looking at is. But let's say we go here, and we're going to look at F1. It's telling you that these flashing green areas are the frilly jungle. It is a temperate conifer forest. The temperature here is temperate. It's heavily forested, thick other vegetation, and the surroundings are untamed wilds. This tells you how savage or like how dangerous the location is. And the brook that is in this zone is called the and it's not telling us the whole name. We'll have to look at it later. F2 gets us to the next one. It's also frilly jungle, but notice how it's changed from Untamed Wilds to Wilderness. And there's these areas here. And then F3, this is the Jade Hill. So there's this hill with forest around it. So we've got we're straddling the brook and this hill. This is temperate with woodland, moderate vegetation, and it's considered wilderness. We can also see that all three of them have clay, very deep soil. This one has shallow metal, this one has shallow metal, and this one has deep metal with fluxstone. So this would be ideal because we're going to have a little bit of everything. So basically we're ready to go, but let's just say for a second that I wanted to really spend a lot of time and find the perfect embark site. Don't. That is my advice to you. Don't worry about it. You are going to, if you start playing this game, you are going to lose so many fortresses. So many. That if you get so caught up in picking the perfect embark location, you'll end up looking at this map without ever even really playing the game. Just get used to the idea that you're going to embark, you're going to make mistakes, your fortress is going to fail. That's part of the fun of Dwarf Fortress, is learning all the different ways that you can lose. So we're just going to pick this one, but if you really did want to, you could press N and leave a note here so that you could find it later. But instead we're just going to press the E key to embark. Actually, wait one second. Before we do that, I'm going to press the Tab key. I want to show you some of the other options you can look at. You can press Tab to see your neighbors. There's some goblins. That's fine. There are a number of different dwarven civilizations on this map, and if we press the plus and minus key over on the number pad, you can cycle between them. You can also use the middle mouse wheel to scroll through them, and notice how as I do it, these little people are moving around. This represents how many, where the civilizations are embarked at. You generally want to pick the one that has the most little dwarf guys, because they're the largest civilization, you'll get the most migrants. So we'll go ahead and pick, that one's fine, the Frosty Glaze. Okay, relative elevation, you can see that this is relatively low. We can see that this is kind of confusing. The darker it is, the lower the relative elevation. So this is the lowest point, this is the brook, and this is that hill. We can also see cliff indicator, whether it's flat or not. We can see that the brook is quite flat, and there's a sharp rise in elevation around the brook as we're coming out, and then over here it's more flat. So this will make more sense when we get in game. That's about it. So let's go ahead and embark. So we're going to press E, and then press Enter, and then from here you could just click Play Now. I wouldn't recommend you do that because you're just going to get random attributes, randomly assigned labors, random everything really. Instead, we're going to go down one level and prepare carefully, prepare for the journey carefully. And I'm actually going to wrap it up here just for the sake of keeping the video shorter. But in the next video, we'll talk about some of the items we want to bring along and go from there. So thanks for watching. See you again soon.